Honey, come in here and listen to this guy.
Why? Is it important?
Yeah, it's important. He's talking about the Trump administration and the CIA, NSA, and FBI investigations.
Oh, Ralph, you know I don't like politics.
Oh, stop talking and just come on over here and listen.
Well, he does have a nice voice. He seems to be educated.
No. Not his voice. Listen to what he's saying.
Well, if what he says is true, then there is a real problem in Washington. So this woman, Susan, what's-her-face, she leaked information or something?
Honey, you have to listen. He said that reports are now showing that information was leaked about Trump's cabinet members. I heard this on the news today as well.
Is this Fox News?
OMG, no. This show is called The Spearsy Spin, and the guy's name is Mike Spears.
Mike Spears. I'm wondering if this is the same man that did all the voiceover work at WNBC Radio in NYC back in the late 70s and early 80s?
Wait, you know this guy?
Well, I don't know him personally, but he did a lot of voices for WNBC 66 Radio and for Michael Sarzinski on that station. That was the only station we listened to back then. I recognize his voice and diction. He did voiceovers and impersonated voices, Howard Cosell and such.
Wow, he's been around that long?
You know, Ralph, listening to Mike Spears talk about politics, well, it's kind of like having an old friend over to chat.
Wait, you mean you like the Spearsy Spin?
Ralph, sit down and shush. I want to hear what Mike's saying.
It's time once again for the Spearsy Spin with your host, the young and semi-talented Mike Spears.
Hello there, and welcome to the Spearsy Spin for our Wednesday, April 12th and April 13th, 2017. Our show today is about you, your religion, your beliefs, and then there's those other people. Now, today's show is entitled Praise the Lord and Pass the Ammunition. Religion in the Americas, is it really what we thought it was? Well, first of all, we have to find out what is the origin of religion, and the origin of religion can generally be traced to the ancient Middle East, and it's not as contrasting as many folks today say it is. I think you can break down religious beginnings as follows, okay? So there's about 3 different type of theories back in the beginning, and I think we could start with polytheistic, which is a belief that there are many gods. And of course, some theologians believe that this type of belief is, it's from the Hindus around 2500 BC. Now, polytheism was in itself a religion of many other ancient cultures, including Assyria, Babylonia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. Polytheistic cultures believed in sacrifices to appease their gods. The Canaanites sacrificed to their gods of fertility and to the gods of the earth. The Greeks and Romans developed polytheism to a highly structured pantheon of gods and goddesses. Now, monotheistic thinking with regard to religion is really a more modern belief that resulted from the Enlightenment period of about the 18th century. Atheism is a disbelief in God or religion, and while it is in direct contrast with the religious beliefs of, our country, they too are allowed their disbeliefs and must be able to do so unopposed. To go along with a disbelief in God, here is a clip from comedian George Carlin on God. Give a listen, and then we'll be right back right here.
You have to stand in awe of the all-time champion of false promises and exaggerated claims, religion. No contest. No contest. Religion Religion easily has the greatest story ever told. Think about it. Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you. He loves you. He loves you and he needs money. He always needs money. He's all powerful, all perfect, all knowing, and all wise. Somehow, just can't handle money. Religion takes in billions of dollars. They pay no taxes, and they always need a little more.
So as you can see, not everybody believes in the Almighty. And when you have people that are very talented, which George Carlin certainly is, not only as a comedian, but he's actually was an extremely intelligent man. But this is one of the crux where religion tends to take a back seat, so to speak. So keep that in mind as we balance the rest of the show out here, is what has happened to religion, where are we, and watch how things play out as we go along.
Don't go away. We have to pay some bills, and then we're coming back with Mike Spears.
I have a message from Mike Spears at the Spearsy Spin. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a quality show, I can tell you I have no class. But what I do have is a very particular set of radio skills. These skills make this show a favorite for people like you. If you subscribe now, that will be the end of it. If you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will bug you until you subscribe.
What kind of government cares more about appeasing Islamic terrorists than defending the constitutional rights of its citizens? A government that would disarm us during the age of terror. Nothing would make us more vulnerable to generations of suffering and slaughter than the destruction of our Second Amendment. But many of our politicians, aided by a relentless media, are launching that attack themselves. They dream of joining the rest of the disarmed peoples of the world, entrusting our survival to the mercy of monsters. The greatest damage the terrorists could ever inflict upon us is disarmament at the hands of the political elites. But we will never offer our right to survive as a fool's ransom to the world's killers. Our freedom is what they fear most. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Now, pantheism is a belief that all is God. So the window, the tree, the wind, all that kind of stuff. And this was believed and practiced even in ancient cultures. Animism, a belief of the African and American Indian cultures, and also the Egyptian religion under the pharaohs, Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism is in the cultures of the Far East. Now, pantheistic beliefs are also finding resurgence among various New Age movements. Generally, pantheism is the principle that God is everywhere and everything is God. Pantheism is a belief that all is God, prevailed in numerous ancient cultures. And then we come to monotheism. Now, monotheism is a belief that there is only one God, and that this one God is the foundation, and this belief is the foundation of the Judeo-Christian Muslim religions, which, oddly enough, both Muslims as well as the Judeo-Christians both agree on this. Now, this began with a man named Abraham in about 2000 BC. It is from here, it is said, that God began revealing himself to the world through the nation of Israel. However, the Jewish scriptures record the journey of the Israelites from slaves in Egypt to the promised land in Canaan under the leadership of Moses during a period of about 1,500 years. The Old Testament relates this history of Israel with the character and laws of God. During the period of the Roman Empire, Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem as the long-awaited Messiah. The ministry of Jesus ended in about 32 AD with his crucifixion and then resurrection. After Christ's ascension into heaven, the Christian church grew in his name, and the New Testament was written. About 600 years later, Muhammad began preaching in Mecca. Muhammad believed he was the ultimate prophet of God, and his teachings became the precepts of Islam as recorded in the Quran. So we go from 2500 BC to modern-day world, and we ask ourselves, well, what's changed? Well, it's obvious that we as people have changed. There's no question that our societies have changed as well. And what of the religions of today? Well, if you have to shop around for a new religion, then great news. Today in the world, there are about 4,300 religions to pick from. So, what of all these religions? Which one is right? And if only one is correct, then all the others would be wrong, and therefore, those followers would end up in hell, or wherever that particular religion sent you, I suppose. Now, while I'm content within my own religious beliefs, I also know that others might not agree with me, and some people might even wish to convert me. Oddly enough, this morning, I had a very nice lady from the Church of Jehovah knock on my door and gave me an invitation to, well, some doings going on tomorrow night at the local church for them folks. Will I attend? No. Do I respect this religious group for their efforts? Certainly, because they are devoted in their belief and they're out and about, trying to convert as many folks as they can. Now, the next area of religion is that of disdain, failure, ridicule, and accusations of theft. For instance, the Jews. They have been ridiculed, moved from here to there, and are considered the scourge of the earth by many in the Middle East. And what of the defrocked men and women of the cloth? For instance, jailed televangelist Jim Bakker. Now, Jim's back and he's selling survivalist kits. The 74-year-old pastor served 5 years of a 45-year sentence for stealing millions from the PTL Club. Praise the Lord. And that's while he was married to Tammy Faye Bakker. He was accused of raping the church secretary, Jessica Hahn, and had to resign. And he purportedly paid her $279,000 to keep quiet. But Jim Bakker isn't alone when we talk about televangelists and people who use religion to gain their own ends. There's some other big names here like Kent Hovind, Robert Tilton, Billy James Hargis, Peter Popoff, and yes, that's a real name, George Allen Riekers, Lonnie Frisbee, Gilbert Dia, Tony Alamo, and Mike Warnke have all suffered the fame of shame. Now, all the aforementioned men of the cloth appear to have a run afoul with the law of man and of God. It appears some may have succumbed to money pilfering, others to extramarital affairs, and some allegedly to acts of homosexuality. Whatever the infidelity, it appears that the end result for these few was the inevitable realization that perhaps they were not what they claimed to be. The very next issue I associate with certain individuals is a game in life called I'll Let You and God Talk. Now, this game is comparable to Let's You and Him Fight. The latter is a psych script that's used when dealing with aggressive individuals that promote their hates and dislikes onto someone that might be a crusader for them, such as a brother, father, husband, etc. The person playing the game has an issue with another individual, and they create an atmosphere that will pit two people against each other. One is the person the player has a problem with, the other that is fighting for the player's benefit. But in the religious arena, the game is played quite differently. For example, let's imagine a female, unattractive, within childbearing years, who has a limited scope of education. We'll say less than a bachelor's degree, but more than high school. Now, this person will almost inherently limit herself to an exact and limiting social circle of friends and relatives that have shown a track record of providing a safe zone for her, if you will, with regard to men, dating, sex, future accomplishments, and non-mentions of all her failures to date. In short, she will never be asked to be anything more than she is, that girl. Within these constructs, this woman will thrive emotionally, but only to a very limited degree. In short, she will brandish herself as the God-loving person anyone would love. The sad truth is, she is very lonely and most likely harbors very dark thoughts from day to day. But how does this become a religious issue? Well, let me explain the next phase of the God game. Now, when this woman that we've identified with here meets a male, especially an alpha male, this is where the God game becomes a godsend for the woman. Now, in the beginning of their conversation, that's the man and the woman, with all of her inner sadness and the depressed resolve for her life constantly in the forefront of her mind, she will quickly switch to the God game. Here the woman will introduce the subject of God in a way that makes her appear more composed and self-assured. She continues the conversation with the male, but now it is her rapid fire of spiritual ideologies that does two important things for this particular woman. One, she has detached herself from the male-female equation, and two, has repurposed the conversation into her own beliefs and has love only for the one deity, thus believing she is now thwarted an attempt by the male to make any headway with her, and certainly by not letting herself be enchanted into believing that the male would want to make any headway with her. This scenario plays out time and time again in this exercise of religion. Sadly, the woman we just described will probably forever keep all men at bay with this built-in defense mechanism, because she'll never be able to step away from her own self-loathing and self-victimization. In reverse, however, the male with the same physical and mental issues inherently becomes either very quiet or may seek comfort in other forms. The male, believe it or not, is much more susceptible to emotional pain here than the female, as the male typically does not know how to play this game when confronted by an attractive and strong female. This is the same male that will almost always take on chores for the church, as this chore nurturing tends to massage his aching ego. Now, next, I'd like to call this one machine gun rhetoric. In this learned game of mentally hiding in plain sight, we once again will pick on a woman, but this time the woman may or may not be married, may or may not be pretty, but but will almost certainly be extremely manipulative in her day-to-day functions. In this scenario, the woman will most likely have had a childhood where either the mother or father have or had an addiction of some sort. And it is almost a certainty that the family she grew up in would have been poor, and there would have been issues of varying abuse. Okay, so how does this pertain to religion? How does religion get used here? Well, it's quite common for a woman who suffered the described childhood to have had either parent be religious. However, it's almost never both of the parents. It's usually the woman, actually. Now, the machine gun rhetoric, that is extremely fast-paced speech without many pauses, is saved for those people that she feels may not be totally convinced of her perceived connection to God and church. Anyone who is idyllically successful is certain to receive this treatment, should he or she engage in conversation with this woman. For example, should she speak with a successful person, a practiced warm smile is the precursor for a 5-minute diatribe of the latest local, state, and international atrocities, along with her explained disdain for these same atrocities. Now, once she says that, once this information is disseminated, and before the listener can say a word, the God show begins. The woman in this scenario will vilify everything she previously mentioned, but this time she'll use the word of God, usually with page and verse. This too can last about 5 minutes. Result, the person listening gets the feeling that something is wrong and just wants to leave. Once the person has left, our woman here says, "Mission accomplished." But once in a while, our woman here may run into a listener that has something on the ball, and upon hearing her rhetoric, may engage her, not on her level, but a click or two higher, and being very clever and using her own words against her, lets her know that the game is up. Result? Couldn't use God this time to be a deterrent. But wait, there's more. Let's substitute the woman for a man using the exact same attributes. The results are different, but the method of using religion for your own gain is the same. Looking at the man who is playing machine gun rhetoric, he will play a similar game, but not to deflect people from his own inequalities, but to actually use religion as a force of consciousness. Our man here, when approached by the idyllic successful woman, will now evaluate who and what is in front of him. He will engage in conversation, beginning with his accomplishments, whether real or made up. Once he's made what he feels to be a very good impression, he will then change the conversation to religion, delivering his thoughts and his idealisms about God to the listener. Again, though, this is done in rapid-fire succession. In this scenario, the man will try very hard, using religion as his claim to fame, to befriend his new associate, and will from there look to see what he can glean from this mark. And that's exactly what she will become, is a mark. As you can see, taking only of the religious implications of these scenarios, religion once again has become a very convenient way to getting something you want or to keep others away, thus eliminating the need to better yourself and just remain a self-made victim. But don't be too hard on our man and woman here, because the next introduction of religious misuse may even upset Satan himself. As you know, the civilized world is in a life-or-death fight with a group known as ISIS. This group has taken on the religious ideology that they are responsible for the making of a new caliphate, that is, by decree in their holy book, the Quran. In this scenario, we look once again at cause and effect. If this group of Islamist terrorists were to just run around the Middle East, stealing, raping, and killing people, it would be perceived as an offshoot of the Manson family. But this is not the case, as we know that these individuals are using religion as the cornerstone for death, destruction, and beheadings. So now we come to the close of our show. We did not touch on the greatness of religion. Why? Because we wish to provide you with a glimpse of how people use religion to gain their own ends. There are many people who are very, very convenient religious people, and these are the ones that you must watch out for. Now, using religion for a negative cause will spell trouble on Judgment Day. And if you want to make a difference in moving the word of God along, I will tell you the secret. Live by example. Don't thump a Bible. Help those who you can. Take pity upon those who need help or solace. But most importantly, live your life in such a way that you can go to sleep at night knowing the big guy is looking down at you and says, "Oh, I say, good job." Well, if he's got an English accent, I guess you could say it like that. Now, we'd like to know what you think, so please visit us at thespearsyspin.blogspot.com and leave us your thoughts in the comment box. Be professional, because you never know, we may use what you say in one of our shows. Thanks for being with us, folks, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thanks for being with us today. Until next time.